This video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Hey guys, Big Paul here. I have one for you today that I've been thinking about doing for a while and I just haven't gotten around to it. But this is probably one of the biggest frustration points I get with people that I'm working with fat loss and just people in general that I talk to. I don't think people fully grasp all of the aspects of fat loss, what's required for fat loss, why they're not losing fat, and what goes into it. It is a long, boring, arduous process getting lean, and it's probably one of the most important things you can do if you're going to be a physique athlete is to learn how to get lean. We have to master that skill if you're going to call yourself a bodybuilder or a physique athlete. It is the ability to manipulate your body to be able to put on muscle, to be able to take off body fat. And that is critically important. And most people just have no clue when it comes to manipulating body fat, how the mechanisms of body fat loss works. And there's a big difference between losing body fat and then just losing weight. I think that's another thing where people get confused. You hear these people all the time talking about losing 25 pounds in 3 weeks or 4 weeks. You did not lose 25 pounds of fat in 3 or 4 weeks. It's just impossible. Anyway, we're going to dig into it in just 1 second. Okay, so first things first, the fundamental principles of fat loss. We have to understand thermodynamics and the first law of thermodynamics, the conservation of energy. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed, only transferred. That is an immutable law of physics. I hear Justin, my trainer, talk about it all the time. If you could violate thermodynamics, you would win a Nobel Prize. It's, so I hear people arguing against calories in, calories out, and that, that there's more to it than calories in than calories out. And at the end of the day, no, there's not. You have to. Now, there are other factors that play into it, and we're going to get into them in a second, but none of them violate thermodynamics. And I'll explain to you why they don't violate thermodynamics. Things like hormones, things like nutrient partitioning, stuff like that definitely play a role. But those do not violate thermodynamics. People just don't understand how they work and how they play into the math of everything. So thermodynamics rules supreme. You have to be in a caloric deficit to lose body fat. That's just how it is. There's just no way around it. Now, there's multiple ways we can create that caloric deficit. We can increase metabolism through drugs, through energy expenditure, like doing more cardio, lifting more, walking more, just being more active. We can reduce caloric intake, so we're eating less, and that gives us a deficit to where we can burn more. So we can manipulate energy storage, where the energy is actually being stored at, but none of this violates thermodynamics. So keep in mind that 1 pound of fat, it takes 3,500 calories to be metabolized, burned, to get rid of 1 pound of fat. So as I mentioned in the intro, when you hear these dumb fucks talking about losing 25 pounds from their keto diet in 4 weeks, they did not lose 25 pounds of fat in 4 weeks. They just did not. They probably lost a lot of water from pulling carbs, and there's some glycogen depletion. They may even have lost muscle tissue if they're not eating enough protein and they're overdoing the cardio, but they did not lose 25 pounds of fat. Just did not. You do the math on it, that's something close to 100,000 calories burned. You did not burn 100,000 calories of fat in 4 weeks. So anytime you hear anybody talk about these crazy weight loss programs where you're losing insane amounts of fat in a short period of time, they're bullshit. It's just bullshit. There's just no two ways around it. It's not true. You can lose a lot of weight in a short period of time, but that's not fat. And that is an important thing to keep in mind. There is a big difference between losing weight and losing body fat. They are very, very different things. So the body stores energy, anything that we are in excess of the caloric, our caloric requirements get stored. And they get stored primarily in three ways. Our body has things that they can tap into for energy when we're in a caloric deficit. So fat stores, that is the most obvious one. Glycogen, a lot of people don't consider. Bodybuilders were very familiar with glycogen, but the glycogen is just stored glucose, carbohydrates that is stored in the muscle and in the liver for immediate use. And then we have muscle protein. So those are the three ways, primary energy sources that are stored in the body: the fat, muscle protein, and glycogen. And when we're in a fat burning state or in a weight loss state, what do we want to burn? We want to burn fat. We don't want to burn muscle protein, and we don't want to deplete glycogen too much. All right, so this is another area where people get twisted up in knots, and the hormones definitely play a role in fat loss, but they do not change thermodynamics. And I'm explaining to you how they affect fat loss. So the hormones that we have to consider when it comes to body composition and fat loss, they can change how calories are burned, what resource they're burned from, whether it's muscle protein, whether it's fat, whether it's from glycogen. They can change how energy is stored, pushing things preferentially towards fat storage versus storage as glycogen, and vice versa. Metabolizing muscle protein synthesis, metabolizing proteins into muscle tissue. So the hormones definitely play a role in all that. Now, keep in mind, those calories do not disappear. There's not some magic where calories in, calories out does not work. It's just they're being stored differently and they're being put to different use in the body. They're still there. Thermodynamics has not been violated. So the hormones that play a role in body composition, number one is testosterone. Testosterone increases muscle protein synthesis, aka muscle growth, which is what we want. It also promotes glycogen storage and promotes lipolysis, fat loss. So indirectly, so we have increased fat burning, we have increased glycogen storage, and increased muscle protein storage. That sounds to me like an ideal environment for fat loss, for improved body composition. What do you think? So I see dudes all the time that have very low testosterone and they can't get in shape, and then they're resistant to getting on TRT or talking to a doctor about it. They have this mentality in their head that they want to remain natural, which is fine. We all have our own journey and our own personal path that we need to follow, but that's you're making the process a lot harder and a lot less efficient when your hormones are not optimized. Estrogen, a lot of times what I'll see is like guys that have low testosterone tend to have high estrogen as well. And increased estrogen increases fat storage and suppresses testosterone. So, and it also increases hunger. So you'll see it with women all the time when they get near their period and estrogen's high, or during pregnancy, estrogen is high and hunger goes through the roof. There are other hormones at play. I'm oversimplifying here. But so estrogen, when we're in a fat loss state, we want to keep estrogen low, testosterone high. I know estrogen has other health benefits, cardiovascular benefits, neurologic, neuroprotective benefits. But when we're in a fat loss phase, we do want to suppress estrogen to a certain degree. Thyroid hormones. This is one that I think most commonly people are familiar with. That I hear it all the time. Well, my thyroid must be low. Sometimes it is, but it's not always thyroid. There can be other things going on too with your thyroid, like your ratio T3 to T4, conversion. There's all these different factors that play into it. It's just it's not as simple as your T3 is low. There are other factors, but certainly that can happen. It's less common in men. I don't see men very often with messed up thyroid hormone profiles. It's pretty common in women though. Cortisol. When your cortisol does promote the breakdown of tissue, but it increases fat loss, but it also increases muscle loss. So, and it can slow the thyroid. So typically you'll see bodybuilders during contest prep, they'll use PEDs that suppress glucocorticoids, aka cortisol, to prevent the breakdown of muscle tissue. And we use other compounds to promote fat loss. HGH is a wonderful hormone. It causes the breakdown of the breakdown of fat while promoting protein retention in the muscle. So, another one that goes hand in hand with testosterone. To me, testosterone and HGH are kind of like peanut butter and jelly for improved body composition. Insulin suppresses growth hormone and signals glycogen and fat storage. So insulin is a bit of a double-edged sword. So we can deploy it in bodybuilding purposes. When you're in a depleted state, we can deploy it to promote glycogen storage. And insulin is also protective of muscle tissue. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword. People have this, there's some quack doctors out there that right now are saying that insulin is the enemy of fat loss. That it's a bit more complicated than that. They are right to a certain degree that when insulin is high, you're in a less fat burning state. But when you're in a caloric deficit, your insulin's going to be running lower. And it's always present anyway in your body. There's never a time where there's no insulin present in your body. So I don't know where these quacks get that shit from. I think they're just selling books and programs to people. And the hunger hormones, this is a big one too. Your other hormones might be in line, and I see this sometimes with guys, but your hunger hormones, leptin and ghrelin, and the ratio of leptin to ghrelin, leptin signals the feelings of satiety. It's triggered when fat cells are fuller and when the stomach is full. The body can also become, I have another video up about metformin, but the body and how it helps resensitized to leptin, but the body can become desensitized to leptin if you're chronically obese. And we see that in people that are, these incredibly large people that hit 300, 400, 500 pounds, or they just have these insatiable drive to eat. It's crazy. And they think what happens is they become completely desensitized to leptin, and that ghrelin becomes the dominant hormone. So it doesn't matter what they eat. They are constantly in a state of hunger no matter how fat they are. So that's signaling from the fat cells to the body, letting them know that, hey, I've plenty in storage that I don't need to eat right now, is broken. Ghrelin is the hormone that signals hunger. It's triggered when fat cells are depleted. Anybody that's been on contest prep knows all about it. When the stomach is empty, if your stomach's growling, you know what I'm talking about. And when your glucose gets low, if you've ever gone hypo before, you definitely know what I'm talking about. You get these crazy, ravenous urges to eat. Is usually sweet stuff when your glucose gets low. So poor hormonal profiles can cause more muscle loss than fat. So once again, we're not violating thermodynamics. We're just tilting the balance of what is being burned towards muscle and not fat. So if you're in a state where your estrogen is high, your cortisol is high, your testosterone is low, your thyroid is low, your HGH is low, you're insulin resistant from just being obese for a long period of time, and you have really poor hunger signaling, you can get into a state where you're, it's hard, it's almost impossible to diet because you're hungry all the fucking time. And then when you actually do get yourself in a deficit, you end up just burning muscle and you're not burning fat. So thermodynamics is not violated here. We're just burning a different fuel source. So, and that is definitely not what we want. We do not want to lose muscle and keep fat. That is a poor state to be in. that leads us into the skinny fat conundrum. And we've all seen that person, the person who loses weight, but they're still fat. I call it skinny fat. You see these dudes that are 160 pounds, but they have man boobs and a belly. It's so weird. And almost always when you see this, it's because their hormones are all fucked up. And it's always the people that you'll see pounding a shit ton of cardio. People have it in their head that, yeah, I just need to do more cardio and I'm going to lose fat. But what they end up doing is just burning more muscle. And they're not really burning fat. The body wants to... muscle is expensive to maintain. The body does not want to hang on to muscle if it doesn't have to, especially if your hormones are all fucked up. So you end up just burning more muscle, and your body fat actually, by a ratio of muscle to fat, ends up going up. So I've actually had it happen to me before. When I came off gear cold turkey, I lost weight and got fatter at the same fucking time. It is a miserable state of being. It is a horrible way to be. And I remind you again, there is a big difference between weight loss and fat loss. Weight loss does not equal fat loss. So just because the scale's moving doesn't mean that you're losing fat. So people get too focused on the scale sometimes. It's the pictures that matter the most. You know, the scale will go down if you are losing fat, but don't get overly focused on it. Most people that they go on crash diets, you'll see that they lose more muscle than fat. They drop in weight initially quickly, like the people that go on these keto or carnivore diets. You know, oh my God, I've lost so much weight and I've lost it so quick. It's just glycogen and fullness. It's just water weight. It's not real fat loss. And why does this happen? It's one, their hormones are out of whack. Why does the skinny fat scenario happen? They don't eat enough protein a lot of times. People just simply aren't eating enough protein. I see it with vegans and vegetarians all the time. They get skinny fat, and their body composition is really bad. And I don't mean to slight, vegans or vegetarians. They always get very upset when you criticize their diet. But if you're not getting enough amino acids in your diet, you cannot sustain muscle tissue. It is an immutable fact of science. So if you are vegan, if you are vegetarian, you have to supplement with complete amino acids from some source, so you got to figure that out. You can't just eat kale and beans all day long and expect to hang on to your muscle mass. What you end up doing is just getting yourself in a state of where your body composition is just absolutely horrible. Same thing with keto. Keto, it's the same thing. You end up glycogen depleting. While there is more protein in keto, often it's not enough. You just get flat. You'll see it with keto guys that I see guys that do contest prep with keto, and they just come into the shows looking flat. They don't even look like, they just get flattened out like a pancake. And they overdo cardio. That's another thing that you'll see with people. They just keep pushing cardio because they think if I do more cardio, I'm going to lose weight. More cardio, I'm going to lose weight. We've all been there before. I've done less cardio this year than I ever have, and I lost body fat. A lot of the skinny fat people don't weight train either, and they tend to run high-fat, low-carbohydrate diets. Carbs are not the enemy. Carbs. We want to use carbs intelligently, but they are not the enemy. Carbs don't make you fat per se. Eating in a caloric surplus makes you fat, and having your ratios of macronutrients out of whack can make your body composition poor. All right, some final thoughts on this. If we are going to build a program that is going to optimize body composition, and what I mean by that is fat loss, not muscle loss, and not being overly focused on weight loss, but prioritizing the loss of fat, of body fat, improving body composition. We want to construct a program that means optimizing our hormones. If your hormones are not optimized, doesn't matter what you do, you're probably going to have poor body composition. You can lose weight, but your body composition probably is going to suck. Eating plenty of complete proteins, smart carbohydrate deployment. I know I'm kind of getting into selling the selling you on the carb cycling, but that's why I think the carb cycling approach works so well, because there are periods of time where you are depleted of carbs and then you refill your glycogen to keep yourself full. I'm doing it right now on a diet phase. Yesterday I had 1,200 grams of carbs and to refill my depleted glycogen to fill back up, but I'm losing fat at the same time. I do think lower fat diets are better for body composition. Keeping the fats low. Intelligent use of fat burning agents. A lot of times people just take fat burners and have no idea how they work or how they synergize with the other, with your hormones, with your diet, how they synergize with each other, how they add the mechanisms by which they induce fat loss. So they end up taking them for nothing and they get nothing out of them. Weight training, continuing to weight training and to have some intensity in your weight training through a fat loss phase, it sucks. Your energy gets low. You don't want to lift weights, but that helps preserve muscle. Intelligent cardio deployment, doing enough cardio, but not overdoing cardio. When you do a shit ton of your cardio, your body wants to drop muscle. It is very inefficient for improved, cardiovascular conditioning. So your body's like, I don't need this muscle around anymore. All I can ask you is, have you ever seen a marathon runner that looks like they could get on the Olympia stage? They don't exist because it's just not a process that the body can handle. Measurement is another area I see people fuck up all the time. They don't weigh their food. They don't track their macros. They just guess. That one seems rather obvious to me. And having realistic fat loss goals, I have clients that I work with, they get very, very frustrated. They're 3 weeks in, 4 weeks in on their diet, and they're like, Coach, I'm not seeing any progress. I don't think we're doing enough. And I'm like, man, you got to just hang in there. It is a slow, arduous process if you want to hang on to muscle tissue, improve body composition, and drop fat. You were talking about 0.5% to 1.5% of your total body weight per week. So if you're a 200-pound male, we're talking about somewhere between 1 to 3 pounds. We probably want to be pushing closer to the 3 pounds, but 1 to 3 pounds of body fat per week. That's why we take a full 16 weeks for contest prep. Let's say 15 of it is actual, fat loss, and then we have the 1 week of peaking. So if you're losing 2 pounds per week, which doesn't seem like much, and from week to week doesn't look like much in the mirror, you're talking about 30 pounds of fat loss over a 16-week contest prep. That is pretty significant. That is a lot of fat. But people don't see the changes from week to week, and they get very, very frustrated. They get upset. They get diet fatigue. They'll get, 4, 5, 6 weeks in, and they just quit, or they have knee-jerk reactions and they want to make changes. They get panicked, or they give up. They don't stay committed to it long enough to actually see any results. In my opinion, you got to commit to a diet, probably if you're in a fat loss phase, to 16 weeks, 12 to 16 weeks. 12 is probably the minimum. But if you want to see really good results, you probably need to commit to 16 weeks. We get much past 16 weeks. 20 is probably the outer limit of where you want to take it. And then your body just kind of rebels after that, and you need to give yourself a diet break. So if you're chronically obese, if you're, very, very, very big, you probably want to take diet breaks here and there, push it for 20 weeks and then take 8 weeks and just kind of go back to maintenance calories and then do another push. So that's just kind of my 2 cents on that one. All right, guys, hopefully you found this helpful. Let me know in the comments section what you think about my video on fat loss. And if you have any questions, I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for watching. For coaching or consultations, head over to www.anabolicbodybuilding.com to book your spot today. I can help you with optimizing hormones, fat loss, muscle gain, physique, athletic performance, nutrition, and health. For more information, shoot me an email at bigp3rd@gmail.com.